I'm gonna try to do this while going through Briley's clothes and getting out her clothes that are younger than 6 months, because she keeps getting new clothes and we don't have room for them, and she doesn't fit in the ones that are younger than 6 months. But while I do that, I'm going to tell y'all about the writing update, because if you were following me on social media probably a few months ago, I kind of like changed my content a lot, and that was because of what I felt like the Lord was like leading me into. And I'm gonna explain this. I've been wanting to do a video on this. I'm gonna try multitask. I've been wanting to do a video on this for a while. And I might do a whole podcast on it, but basically we're gonna see how good I am at multitasking, because I'm not very good at it, as you can tell. Basically, when I stopped working for my job at the university, which was a couple years ago, before we moved to Texas, when we moved to Texas, I stopped working full-time, and I felt really led to post more, use my online platform for like God's glory, stuff like that. And I had gone to a writing conference the summer before we moved, and they really stressed about the importance of, y'all look at this bikini for Briley, it's just so cute. But they had really stressed about the importance of like being active on social media, all that stuff. Well, before that conference in the summer, I really wasn't that active on social media. I would post like updates, but I wasn't like having a theme or a focus or a message or anything like that. And then I went and pitched a book idea, and it didn't go well. Not that the book idea is bad, but it didn't go well. Number one, I didn't have a website. Okay, and that's very important. Basically, now I understand from being a business owner, you want to make sure, like editors and publishers want to make sure that their books are going to sell. So if you're a nobody that has no social media, no connections, no audience, like why would anybody buy your book? Usually we buy books based on people that we know, or a recommendation of like, hey, this book is awesome, you should read this. Very rarely do we just pick up a random book. Usually we see other people reading it, or we know the person, or we follow them, or whatever. So there's connections of why we read a book. So having a website is super important, and also being active on social media. And one thing that they talked about was it's not about the number of followers that you have, it's really about your engagement. Is your audience engaging with you? Do you have a clear mission, a clear theme, like things like that. So I left the conference realizing, okay, I was working full time, and I was also in my master's, and I was also married, so I really did not have much time to prioritize what I can prioritize now with staying at home. And I do help and work for my husband's business, but it's very flexible on my own schedule. And so I left there realizing, okay, a change has got to happen. And a change did happen. We moved to Texas. I stopped working. I got pregnant soon after, and I started making a lot of content. And the content, if you remember, was a lot about books. It was about books. I love to read, things like that. But something that I learned very quickly was like, it felt very forced to create content about books. Like, I follow other authors, that's all they do, is like they just talk about books and book reviews and book content. That's like one of their main things, is book content, and that's great for them and it's successful. And I tried copying a lot of what they were doing, and it wasn't working. It didn't feel organic. It did not feel like an outpouring. It felt forced. I felt like whenever I would sit down and try to come up with my weekly content stuff. Like, I just could not, it just wasn't it. It just wasn't it, to be honest. And so then at that time, Texas Outlaw started growing. I started doing more tasks for my husband. And I really had to ask myself, like, okay, you feel so stressed out, so overwhelmed from having to do all these different things. I was a new mom. I was getting more responsibilities with my husband's business. I was also trying to write a book and work out and do content on my own time and all this different stuff. And I just felt overwhelmed. And so I sat down and was like, okay, God, like, what am I supposed to focus on? And I took a notebook and I just listed out what I felt like he wanted me to focus on. And I kind of talk about this in a different video, but really he wanted me to focus on not writing. And at that time I was trying to like get my fiction book done. I was trying to, because I'm going to the conference again this summer, and I wanted to get ready to pitch it, all the stuff. And I felt like the Lord was like, no, like, your focus right now is on your husband's business, Texas Outlaw, and then on Briley and your family. And fitness, like, prioritizing your fitness. But other than that, no. Like, writing has taken a back burner. And I was, like, kind of sad, to be honest. I was very sad. Yeah? Because we are human beings and we're selfish, and I was like, when is it going to be, my turn for pursuing my goals? Because right now I'm helping my husband pursue a goal that he has, and I love it, don't get me wrong, but writing is something that I seriously dream about. I dream about being an author, having published books, going to events, talking about the book content that I've written. I have so many book ideas in my head. And it's funny because as I have these book ideas in my head and I will say this, I'm going to pause for a minute because I'm kind of going all over the place. I'm still writing and I'm still storytelling. And that is something the Lord has taught me in this season of life. I took over my husband's, all the marketing, all the social media, all the content for Texas Outlaw. I took over and he's doing other stuff. And what we need to realize is that storytelling, because as writers and authors of fiction, books, and even nonfiction, like, your goal is to storytell. Like, that's your whole, I literally, on my bio, on my social media, it's called Storyteller of the Gospel. Like, I love storytelling. I love fiction stories. I just love stories in general. And I learned very quickly that writing isn't the only way to storytell. That visual content and social media and this kind of content is storytelling as well. It's just a different type, and it's in a different way. And so in this season of life, God has really been teaching me about storytelling and being strategic, and I still get to be creative, and I still get to storytell. I still get to write stories and write a message and write a theme and think about, okay, what do we want to communicate? What's the theme we want to focus on? Like, what are we trying to get accomplished? And it's so funny, guys, because when you lay down the thing that you want, when you lay it down before the Lord, I had one day in my Jesus time, the Lord was very, very firm with me and was like, right now, your focus is not on writing, and I need you to be a servant, and I need you to lay it down. And I didn't want to. I wanted to be selfish, and I wanted to say, no, I want to do this thing. I have this dream, and I want to do it. And a part of me was like, how is this fair that I have to lay this down and serve my husband's dream right now? And I don't want that to sound awful, because I love my husband's dream. Like, I love Texas Outlaw and I love helping him with it, but I wanted to do both simultaneously. I wanted to help him with Texas Outlaw and pursue my dream. And the Lord was like, no, Carley, in the season of life that you're in, you're not pursuing your dream. You're in a season of servanthood. And I think about like the story of Joseph. And she didn't even wear this, guys, and it's 3 to 6 months. So I think about the story of Joseph. And I think about, like, Joseph had a dream when he was young. Okay, then he gets thrown into all of these situations of servanthood. Like, I'm sure it was not enjoyable being, what's the guy's name? Oh, what's his name? His wife, faked that Joseph tried to sleep with her. Whatever his name is, I forget his name. You know, he had to serve him and his household. And then he is thrown into prison, and he's serving in prison. And he's serving in all of these different capacities. And it's like, finally at the end, that's when his dream came to pass. And so, you know, we're called to be servants. And we're called to serve. And like right now, the writing that I want to pursue, the book series that I want to pursue, is not something that God wants me to pursue right now, and I have to be okay with it. And so that being said, moving forward, just to let you know, I really felt like God was like, I want you to focus on Texas Outlaw, focus on running, fitness, getting back in shape, taking care of your body. And guys, what I did not realize is that this community, this Texas Outlaw community, like, he has given me a community to reach. And I was like so dumb, like wanting to organically create, because that's something you do online and through content, is you create a community based on your theme and your message. And I was thinking, okay, I got to create this community based on storytelling, based on books, all this stuff. And it just wasn't working. And then one day God was like, Carly, like, don't they need Jesus too? Don't the people that your husband is serving, is hosting these races for, like, don't they need to hear the gospel and the good news too? Like, I've given you a platform. I've given you an audience. Like, take advantage of it. And so that's when my content really changed, and I started doing a lot of running, fitness, mom stuff, and I'm still storytelling. It's just different. So, and I will say, it's been an overflow. Like, I don't have to, when I sit down to make content, yeah, sometimes I'm like, what am I going to do? But still, there's so much scripture that relates to running and endurance and perseverance. And like, it's so cool because like, I feel like it's truly an outpouring of what's going on the inside. I don't know why I put this over here. So, that being said, that's why it all shifted, if you were wondering that. Okay, and then the really big update. So, I'm going to Realm Makers, which is a Christian fiction, speculative fiction, like sci-fi fantasy genre Christian writing conference this summer. I'm super excited. And I am actually going to be pitching a book. Well, it's a series, but it is actually a children's book. And it revolves around running, faith, and Texas Outlaw. It combines those three things of running, faith, and Texas Outlaw. Why I'm excited about this is because in the years past, when I pitched my book, it was just me. I was having to figure out an email list. They ask you, do you have a big email list? I mean, like, connection. That being said, I am pitching at the writing conference a children's fiction book that combines faith, running, and Texas Outlaw. It has Texas Outlaw in it. And I'm excited because last year, you know, they're really all about connections, because again, it's a business. They want to make sure that they can profit. They're spending all this money creating a book, which costs a lot of money. They want to make sure that they're going to get their money back and then some. And I'm excited because when I pitched the first year, all I had was me. You know, I didn't even have a website yet. I didn't really have an email list. All I had was my social media. I didn't even have YouTube channel. Wasn't really doing, I don't even think I was doing the podcast. Like, I didn't have any of that. And now, with the book that I will be pitching, I will have Texas Outlaw, like all the connections through Texas Outlaw. It's running, so we ran in college, so I got a bunch of connections there. Briston has a huge email list from Texas Outlaw. I have the podcast, which blew up, and the YouTube, which you're watching on here. Like, there's a lot more avenues and connections with it. And so it makes me excited because I'm like, you know, maybe with it they'll actually consider the book. And I think the book is super cute. You know, I will say, in the writing industry, you have self-publishing and then you have traditional publishing. And everybody, you know, wants to be traditionally published, but really self-publishing and traditional publishing have pros and cons for both. So I have always gone back and forth on like which one I want to do. You know, I've published on Amazon some planners and devotionals on there, but like whenever it comes to my actual fiction books, the big pro with self-publishing is that you decide, like, do I want to keep this and write this in here, or do I want to take it out? You have a lot more control on the cover of the book and things like that. Whereas traditional publishing, you have a lot more connections and outreach. So I say all of that to say that no, even though the content has changed, I still love stories. I still want to eventually write. There's some things that in my head I've been brainstorming and different stuff for the future. And so, you know, I still am going to write. I want to be an author. I still want to publish some stuff. It's just going to come at a slower rate than I necessarily wanted. And that's okay. You know, like this morning I read, I think about Ecclesiastes 3, which is a time for everything. And Briston and I are literally in a transition phase. So there's a season for everything. And I also think about this morning when I was reading in James 5, how it says like it's good to be patient. And like he says to be patient and wait for the promise of the coming of the Lord. But also like if God has given you a promise, you know, if you want to steward it well, maybe waiting's the best thing, because maybe you're going to get wisdom in the waiting process. And I have to have a good attitude. That is like one of the hardest parts, is seeing people on social media and different places, you know, they are getting published or they're getting book awards or they're on to their next book or XYZ. And it is so, I'm not gonna lie, it is discouraging. It is discouraging because as someone who wants to be where they're at, I'm like, man, like, you know, and a part of me can get bitter, and the temptation of getting jealous is there. But then it's also like, hold up, Carley, like, there are a lot of blessings in your life, and like God has you where he wants you. And you know what, like waiting 5 years to get this book published just means you're going to get better at your craft. You're going to have better ideas, and whenever it comes, like you're going to be able to steward it so well, you know, like you're going to be a lot wiser, and you're just going to be able to carry the responsibility and the weight of that responsibility better. And so I always have to keep that in mind of like, have a good attitude. Waiting is not a bad thing. Like being patient and waiting, this world wants you to do things so quick and like do it now and get it done. And I think scripture teaches us the opposite of like, there's a time, an appointed time for it. And I even like saw a verse today in Habakkuk. It was talking about like, write the vision and make it plain. And it literally says like, at the appointed time, the Lord will make it happen. And so like, I have this vision of these book ideas that I truly feel like are from the Lord, but I have to just be obedient in the season that he's called me into. And right now with this writing update, like he's called me to focus on running in Texas Outlaw and being a servant for my husband. And thank God he's given me, you know, kind of an avenue of writing through that. Like I'm still gonna advertise these children's books. But if it was my choice, I wouldn't have done that. I would have done the fiction book that I've wanted to get published for a while. But, you know, I think, okay, well, maybe this avenue of children's books, like, if I tried to publish that fiction book now, it wouldn't do as well. But, like, later on, it's going to do better. So I just think having the mindset of, like, being patient, waiting well, you know, rejoicing in the season that you're at. It's okay. Like, God is patient. He's coming back soon, but he's also patient. So that balance. So that's my writing update for y'all. I do want to say that Bristol and I are going to give a life update. So we've had a lot of questions about like what's next and stuff with some of my posts that I've done. Like, are we moving? What if he's not coaching or teaching? What are we going to do after that? This is his last week of school. So we are going to do a video probably in the next couple of weeks, like just giving a good life update. There's some awesome stuff coming with Texas Outlaw that we are so excited about. And I just guys, like, I just can't wait for you to see it. We love serving this community. Like, y'all are awesome, literally like the most awesome people ever. And so like we truly enjoy like coming up with new ideas to help y'all and your goals and like what you're striving for. And I have one particular idea that I'm going to be working on this summer. Well, there's a few of them actually, but we are so excited for like what's to come in that. And so yeah, just stay tuned for that, and I will see y'all on the next video.